This is Southeastern 16 presented by FanDuel. I'm Chris Lee, joined by Brian Edwards. We are here to give you picks and analysis on Oklahoma's road trip to South Carolina. FanDuel has the Sooners, a 5.5-point road favorite with a 42.5-point over-under. As of Tuesday morning, you can catch this game 11:45 Central on the SEC Network. Before we get into it, reminder, we are brought to you by our good friends at Game Time Sidekicks. They make these lovely tumblers that you see me drinking out of every week. And boy, their product is good. They give you officially licensed stainless steel drinkware, all SEC schools, 350 other universities, everything from stainless steel sippy cups, tumblers, 40-ounce bottles, and shaker cups. SE16 gets you 20% off your whole order at GameTimeSidekicks.com. We are also brought to you by the HOF app. Smart bettors rely on data. HOF hands you powerful analytics at your fingertips to tilt the odds in your favor. Improve your chances of winning using historical data, matchup grades, trends, and player performance insights. HOF was created by Ivy League sports geeks to let everyday fans bet smarter. For a limited time only, our listeners not only get a 7-day free trial, but they also get 50% off their first month when they use code SE16 at checkout. Just download the HOF app on iOS or Android, enter code SE16, and you're all set. Brian Edwards, I think this game will be overlooked maybe with some other games on the schedule, but the more I look at it, I think it's an interesting matchup for a lot of reasons. Full disclosure, I don't think either of us have decided who we're picking in this one. I think we'll maybe figure that out as we talk it through. I think I know, but I'm not sure because, boy, there's some mixed things about this game that have me wondering which teams are we going to see on both sides. And I think that starts with Oklahoma and John Mateer. I presume he will play again, but, man, he played last week against Texas. And some of that is Texas, okay? That defense has got elite talent. But it did not look like the same John Mateer who was at or near the top of the Heisman list a couple of weeks ago.
No, it certainly did not. There was a video clip of him on Twitter yesterday saying he is a full go at practice starting with yesterday, which was obviously Monday. So apparently he's full go at practice. Every time Texas and Oklahoma play their rivalry game, so you're bound for a letdown after your biggest rivalry. So I will give you OU's post Red River results under Venables, which he's in his fourth year. So there's only three results to talk about. They won in year one, 52-42 against Kansas as a 9.5-point favorite. So they did cover there. The 2 years ago they beat UCF 31-29 at home, but it was a nail biter, and they were a 17.5-point favorite. So, probably a performance not quite to their, certainly not the expected level by the odds makers. And then last year, after the Red River game, they were hosting South Carolina in a pick'em game, and they lost 35-9. And if I remember correct, that was like 28-0 in the first quarter, if I'm remembering correctly. So also revenge mode. So it's a letdown spot for Oklahoma, but it's also a revenge spot, which can maybe wash that out a little bit.
Well, speaking of spots, I would tilt a little bit more towards South Carolina. I don't know that it would make my mind up to pick the Gamecocks, but I think this game's a little bit more dangerous if it's Columbia at night than Columbia at 11:45. But here is a couple things I think that make this a dangerous spot for Oklahoma, okay? First of all, again, the Mateer we saw last week, not the Mateer we have been accustomed to seeing. Nope. So there's that. Number two, South Carolina, I don't think it's played anywhere near what we perceived the ceiling to be. Now maybe perception was wrong. But even in this, okay, Carolina still was within 9 of Missouri. It beat Kentucky 35-13. Vanderbilt game was a game at the half and then lost 20-10 to LSU. Now, that required some, I don't know if smoke and mirrors is the right word, but it certainly required some turnovers at the right time to keep it that close. But that's where I was going to go next, is South Carolina's defense is forcing turnovers on about 3% of snaps, actually right at it. Oklahoma, the issue for the Sooners last week was what? It was turnovers. It was 3 John Mateer picks. So that's number one. Number two, Oklahoma's defense is really, really good. I think it is elite. It's got elite talent in the trenches. But the one thing the Sooners do not do is force turnovers. If my notes are right, they've only forced a turnover in one of their 6 games. That was against Kent State, and I think they forced 2 or 3 there. The other games, none of those. Just not part of what they do. And they've had a little issue. Again, they had some issues with turnovers last week. Oklahoma has turned the ball over in every game but the Kent State game. And when South Carolina gets its hands on a turnover, that has ended up in the end zone, as happened to Kentucky a couple of times. That doesn't always happen, but that is one thing I'm kind of looking for is, like, to me, throw some of the stats out because you've got that turnover potential to flip a game pretty quickly. Oklahoma's favored here, but I think that's one thing if you're from an Oklahoma standpoint looking at this, you've got to be a little concerned about.
Yeah, and I made the line Oklahoma -3. So with it at 5.5 now, I think the line is a little too big. And to your point about turnovers, looking at last year's game, yeah, that was the story, as they had 4 turnovers. Oklahoma, that is. South Carolina had none, -4 in turnover margin. And Oklahoma, I mean, they lost 35-9. They actually out-yarded South Carolina 291 to 254 last year. They out first down them 19-15. And now I'm going to the how they scored their points, because I believe they're, oh wait, does it not have it in the Gamecast? Oh, sorry. Maybe I'm not doing
Well,
that.
while you're looking that up, I'm going to give you one more stat too, and this is where I do think that Oklahoma is going to end up forcing more turnovers as a defense in the second half. I think when you get to the quarterback with the regularity that the Sooners do, it could be a problem. Oklahoma has registered what? I think 23 sacks so far. South Carolina's given up 20. So all that analysis about turnovers, like, this could be the week that it flips maybe, Brian, because you've got a defense that is getting a lot of sacks and an offensive line that has been giving up sacks and pressures pretty much all year.
Yeah. And Oklahoma gets after your butt as a, with the pass rush. Now, Lenoris Sellers has also got that elusiveness, but it hasn't helped at times this year. Actually, it hasn't helped much at all, because, I mean, his rushing stats are shockingly bad, but I mean, that's on account of sacks. Last year against Oklahoma, Sellers was 16 of 24, 175 yards, 1 touchdown, without an interception. Yeah, but and I know you mentioned this earlier. It's like we haven't seen South Carolina's best game yet, and maybe it's time for that. You would think it comes at home, but like you also noted, I think that 12:45 kick definitely favors Oklahoma. You like your student section to have a little more time to get feeling right, and I think the early kick helps Oklahoma. So there's a lot of variables going on here for sure.
Yeah, and I think this is the lowest over-under game in the league this week. Again, it's 42.5. Some of it is like type of game too. One thing South Carolina's having trouble with is its defense is on the field more than its offense by about 6 snaps. For Oklahoma, that's been the reverse. They're averaging 70 snaps a game. Their defense is only on the field for 56. So this is maybe kind of a who can run the ball and control the clock type of game that seems to favor Oklahoma. But on the other hand, OU's had trouble running the ball from the running back position. I think John Mateer's injury with his hand, you would think they would want to expose him less to that. South Carolina, gosh, the biggest run they've had all year was by a third-string running back last week. I think their running game, they've got some talent there. I think the line has been part of the issue. They did run it for 6.2 yards per rushing play against a really good LSU defense. That was their best rushing output of the year so far. So again, some late changes. I think, last week, I guess what I'm trying to say is both offenses were a little different than they'd been prior to those games last season. Carolina ran the ball better, and Mateer being mortal certainly changed OU's offense a good bit.
Yeah, look, I love Rasul Faison, the Utah State transfer. I've been saying all year they need to get him more touches. It was Fuller, the younger guy that was actually their leading rusher last year and had that long run you just noted. But Faison, not that impressive. And again, we've noted the O-line struggles, but 231 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns, 4.3 yards per carry. I still think he needs more touches. And as a receiver, he has 10 catches. Wow, only 34 yards. But Vantravius Jacobs has been the big surprise for South Carolina. Now, he did not have that big a game last week. I had that game on, but I was mostly watching the Gators. But I would imagine Jacobs was given a lot of attention by LSU's secondary, and I think LSU's got one of the best secondaries in the country. But still, Jacobs, 20 receptions, 340 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And I know that Jay and I talked a lot over the summer about how surely and hopefully for South Carolina purposes that maybe Nick Harbor was going to finally reach his potential this year. And I mean, he is such a big target and he looks great, but the numbers still aren't there, man. Only 13 catches, 256 yards, and 1 touchdown. I know you were kind of talking about some over-under stuff. I'll save my over-under stats for the end, but I will also share as a home underdog under Beamer, South Carolina 6-5 against the spread as a road favorite under Venables. Oklahoma is 4-7-1 against the spread.
Yeah, and here's another concern too. South Carolina, if you adjust for sacks, 2.2 yards per passing play last week against LSU.
Oh, gross.
I think that might be the worst number we've seen for any team in the league against anybody, whether you're playing another SEC team or Kent State or whoever. So no, look, I think that was probably a little bit of an outlier. They're getting 6 per pass play otherwise, or even with that for the season. And had 8.6 per Kentucky. But I mean, I guess the point I'm trying to make is like they're like mixed signals all over the place for this game, including the fact that like Shane Beamer's teams, Brian, always get better. Now, when they really peak, they call it Cocktober. Really, when they start playing their best is November. But, this is usually about the time where Carolina starts to play better ball. It is at home. Again, even when Carolina has not played that well, most of the games have been close. And so that's why this game is just so intriguing to me in terms of, who could win it, because I can make a case for either side based on some things we've unpacked.
Well, the late October games for South Carolina last year were the aforementioned 35-9 win at Oklahoma. And then the next week against 10th ranked A&M, 44-20 home win as a 3-point home underdog. So they they did get going there mid-ish late October last season.
Yeah, but that was also a very different, I think, offense in this one. And a different, I think one thing, the defense has been a little better than I thought it might be.
Yeah.
Given all the losses, but it's not they're clearly not this year's team on either side of the ball. And I think for Oklahoma, we're just not sure. I think we believe in the defense. Just hard to know what the offense is going to be with Mateer's health. With that, do you have anything else on this game, or are we ready to dive into picks?
I've got some over-under stuff, but we'll save that for the end.
We'll save that one. Yeah, let's get to your pick of who wins this one and why.
Okay. Like I said earlier, I made Oklahoma a 3-point favorite, so they're 5.5. So I certainly lean South Carolina plus the points, and I think I'm gonna go South Carolina to win outright. I think it's time for them to have their best performance of the year. And as much as I am concerned about the O-line, I think Lenoris can maybe make some magic at home with his elusiveness. And, when you got a hard coming pass rushers, sometimes because Lenorsis can make some jukes to get out of the way, and then maybe you find some daylight. So I'm thinking he could maybe make some big plays. And as we've both noted, South Carolina's defense has been surprisingly pretty good. Not as salty as last year, but you still got Dylan Stewart, one of the best pass rushers
Yeah.
in the country. And it just didn't look good for Mateer last week. We don't know how, is he 70%? Is he 85? He looked 65 last week. So I will go with South Carolina to pull the mild upset. And I also like Vantravius Jacobs over 44.5 receiving yards before being held to 18 yards on 2 catches against LSU. He had 108 against Kentucky and 128 against Missouri. And he had 57 earlier in the year against South Carolina State. So over 44.5 on Vantravius Jacobs, South Carolina receiver.
Yeah. My whole thing is this when South Carolina flips a switch. And it might be, it might not be. It's just a complete guessing game. Flip a coin. You probably get better odds in trying to figure out what's going to show up here. But because of that, I'm going to go with what I think is the strongest side in the matchup. That's Oklahoma's defense. Again, I think all those sacks, they are probably bound to start forcing some turnovers. And hey, a fumble return touchdown or a pick six or something might be the difference in this one. So I'm gonna go Oklahoma, but I will add I don't feel super confident of it because of all the reasons we have unwound. Now, Brian, I'm going to ask you your opinion on the total. We've talked about this being a low total, 42.5. Could give you a minute to think about your answer on that before we get there. Reminder, we are brought to you by our friends at Yearly Company, which is a Nashville-based fine jewelry brand built on tradition and designed for meaning. Each piece is handcrafted from solid 14-karat gold, natural gemstones made to measure for a perfect fit, backed by a lifetime guarantee. Every Yearly Company bangle is custom sized, so knowing your size is the most important first step before ordering. That is where the sizing kit comes in. It's the perfect place to start, especially for husbands who want to have sizes ready now. So shopping closer to the holidays is effortless. Code SE16KIT, KIT, will take 100% off the sizing kit at checkout. Also brought to you by our friends at Rockform. If your team's offense makes you want to throw your phone, which both these have done at times lately, make sure it's covered in a Rockform case, which I have. It is the world's strongest magnetic foam case, extreme protection. I've dropped mine several times, no problem. Super strong magnets, Rockform, Rock Lock, secure mounting. This is the busiest time of the year with a new iPhone release. SEC25 gets you 25% off your entire order. I really recommend the Vent Clip 2 for your phones to keep them in front of you in your car. Also brought to you by our friends at Hovey Dry Goods. They make my favorite Titans hat. Make a couple of them, actually. Look no further than Hovey hats for high-quality headwear with a great fit and unique designs. Bad Beat, BADBEAT, gets you 15% off your entire order. All right, I've asked you your opinion on the over-under, Brian. What are you thinking here?
Well, the under is a perfect 6-0 for Oklahoma this year. The under is 4-2 for South Carolina. However, Oklahoma's combined scores, if they were, all right, but this is the lowest total for both teams all season long. OU's combined scores have been 38, 37, 45, which would be over 42.5, 41, 44, which would be over 42.5, and 29. South Carolina's combined scores have been 35, 48, 38, 49, 48, and 30. So since it's the lowest total of the year for both teams, it's kind of hard to pull the trigger on the under. But and I'm not saying it's going to be one of my bets this week, but for conversation purposes, I will go with the under. But if our listeners are thinking that, I would maybe hold off on it. Maybe this thing will tick back up. When these totals get in the low 40s in college, sometimes you'll get some sharp money on the over that'll make it maybe go back up. And look, if it goes to 42, then you can play the under because 42 is a key number, being a multiple of 7. But maybe be patient and see if it drifts up a little bit. But I would say under on the total.
Yeah, I like the under too. I think this is going to be a punt fest. South Carolina averaging under 18 first downs a game. Oklahoma just about 21.5. Oklahoma's only given up just over 11 first downs a game, which is amazing.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, that defense has been so good. Now, they played some, I'd say Oklahoma's schedule, the defenses they faced have been a lot better than the offenses, and that explains some of the totals. But I don't know, man. This could end up being one of these games where we joke about that ends up, 9-5 or something like that.
Right.
Yeah, but I mean, I'd probably more like 17-13, 13-10, but I don't think there's going to be a lot of points scored in this unless there are some defensive scores.
No Slack Room, Tuberville, 3-2 Thursday night festival.
Right. If we have that would be epic. But yeah. Anyway, we'll be here to talk about it either way. I do think it's going to be super interesting. Don't have a lot of confidence on who's going to win, but we made our picks. We will talk about it when the game is over. Hit the subscribe button to the channel. Hit the like button. Yeah. Thank you guys for watching. God bless you. For Brian Edwards, I'm Chris Lee. This is Southeastern 16 presented by FanDuel.